What is up, guys? We are back this week for week 7 of power rankings for the GBA. As you guys know, I'm here with my co-host Jar. Say hi, buddy.
Hey, everybody.
And we are going to jump right into it, and I'm going to let Jar start this week. And down at number 16, we have Old Man Tup, of course.
Yes, I know. Shocking to all you GBA hardcore followers. We had to drop Tup to 16th this week. But he suffered another tough loss this week to the hands of Gator. It was the biggest loss of the week, I believe. But Gator's been on a bit of a tear, and I feel like Tup is definitely getting better. I think he's trying to be a little too cool with his sets sometimes. Like, the Chandelure I thought was a really cool set. Flame Charge is always fun, but I don't see how that set was going to like beat up Pyukumuku or keep it out of range of the Shadow Sneak from the likes of Doublade, or I just didn't see that Chandelure set working versus Gator's team, especially with how well he's played Pyukumuku. Again, Nidoking just is not a reliable hazard setter. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I especially didn't like Black Sludge Nidoking, excuse me, because it's not a bulky enough mon to take hits and actually gain benefit from the Black Sludge, and it let off first to Mamoswine, and that was the end of the Nidoking. I think all Pyukumuku needed was, Tapu Koko needed was Grass Knot and Electric Move. Gator's team gets absolutely just trained by a Pyukumuku with Grass Knot and Electric moves, but he didn't even have Grass Knot. He was just trying to gain momentum off the Mamoswine, and it's kind of what we talked about last week, Aster. He maybe needs to start using it as more of a wall breaker for teams than as something to just gain momentum. But I did like the fact that he was trying to gain momentum into the likes of Banded Raptor. That was really good prep in my opinion. But play, Nidoking dies before turn 5 to a Stab Earthquake again. I don't know about not clicking Hidden Power Ground that you haven't revealed versus a mon that could very well still take it because of how specially bulky Heatran is, but I just don't think Tup was able to get offensive momentum enough into his breakers to start breaking Gator's team down, and I don't think he prepped well enough to take Gator's walls down specifically.
Yeah, once again this week, Tup making a huge mistake. Turn 1, losing what Gator felt was the biggest threat to his team and sacking off Nidoking. We did get confirmation from Gator that he was terrified of Nidoking. I don't understand a lot of Tup's predictions in this game. I'll let you talk on that a little bit more if you want to, but to go into a little more detail as far as prep as well if you want to, but there was no reason to go for Flame Charge with a Chandelure staring down a Heatran behind a light screen. I understand that you have to make plays when you're down, but the thing is, your opponent doesn't. And that's what I think Tup has to grasp after this season, and what he has failed to learn so far this season is that a human being will not take risks that they don't have to if the risk is not worth the reward. So, yeah. I mean, you have to be thinking in your opponent's head as well. Like, Gator has no reason to make over predictions and switch out his Heatran when he's behind a light screen in front of a Chandelure. There's just no reason. Overall, what more is there to say about Tup? He still hasn't moved, and I'm pretty sure that if he wins a game, he'll at least move to 15th, but that still hasn't happened, so again, we're keeping him down at 16th. 0-7 record. How long has it been?
Playing off of you a bit, though, I think you're right. I think Tup's getting into too many low reward, high risk scenarios.
Yeah.
His opponents are getting into the opposite of getting high risk, high reward, low risk scenarios. Like the Nidoking play turn 1, that was extremely low reward for a very high risk, and it cost Tup, well, in Gator's mind, destroyed him because Gator's team is slow, and Nidoking destroys slow teams with semi-bulky mons.
Granted that the Nidoking could have been superpower, I just want to mention that, and that's what I thought what would happen turn 1, but when I saw Earth Power, I was like, what is Tup doing? It's gonna die. Like, yes, he could set up rocks with his Mamoswine, but you have to understand that Mamoswine is not the only rocker on the team, and as soon as you see that, you can't make assumptions turn 1. You have to be careful.
One thing I didn't understand was the Flame Charge play when Pyukumuku, I believe, still had a very respectable amount of health.
Yeah, that too. Like,
so it wasn't beating that thing with that Chandelure set, so I didn't really understand that.
And again, he was still behind a light screen. I think there were other things that could still take Chandelure's hits.
Probably.
So, yeah, anyway, moving on. We have Steve in at number 15, once again, as usual. I think Steve played this match decently well, despite losing. Again, I think he's been playing okay these past few weeks. Now that he's kind of moved off of the whole Mystic thing, he's been focusing a lot more on his play. I will question, however, not bringing a Scarfmon when you know your opponent's biggest threat offensively, and their biggest threat overall all season is Swellow, which, spoilers, Steve's entire team is slower than Swellow. So I disagree with the prep there. I would like to see Steve maybe not overestimate his opponents as much. As strange as that sounds, I'll go into detail. You know that there's no way that Necro Steo brings in Breloom on Starmie unless it's Scarfed. And he's guaranteed that Steve is not going for a Psychic move on that turn because he's in front of a Clef Key. It dies to a Psychic after any attack, even behind a light screen. And when you're 1 in 5 and you think your opponents are going to try and trick every trick in the book to fool you, like bluffing Scarf, you're probably overthinking things. So for the rest of the match, I don't think Steve played badly, like I said. But how can we move him up since he hasn't won since week 1?
Yeah, you make a lot of really good points there. I agree with you. Steve has been performing a lot better as of recently, but I think there's just a few things that, again, over-predicting with the, Breloom, there was no reason to make that play. Starmie did a lot of work to the likes of Steve-O's team, and just sacking it like that when you think he's bluffing a Scarf, when you could just OHKO him with an Ice Beam and or Psyshock, that turn is a little ridiculous to me. Xurkitree was smart, but I don't think Grass EMZ was entirely necessary. I think the game plan for Xurkitree this game probably should have been the Z Electric Terrain set. I actually really like that set versus Steve-O's team because it 2-hit KOs everything, first of all, and you can kill the Manaphy with a Thunderbolt, and you can run Grass Knot and OHKO the Hippo after you've beat its Rindo Berry with some other bait you could have put on there. One thing I'll say, Aster, is I'll defend Steve on not necessarily bringing a Scarfer versus Steve-O's team. I know Swellow has been a giant threat all season, but that's the thing with Steve-O's team. You don't want to bring Scarfers against it. You want to bring Wall Breakers because he has things like the Clef Key, the Zapdos, which can take the Hippowdon even, which can just take hits and soak them from Scarfers. So I kind of understand his prep there, but this is a big thing for me about Steve's draft and play. I have never seen Kartana put in work in League format without a Z Crystal. I have not ever seen it sweep a team without having a Z Titanium Z or Steelium Z or Grassium Z, or having stab, or not even stab, just coverage Z Crystals to help break the one Mon walling them. So that's why I was saying at the beginning of the season I think Kartana might have made a better Z Mon, because it has put in absolutely no work this season so far. But
yeah, here's also a little tip for Steve. There is a way to make your Kartana faster than it is strong, and it gets access to Swords Dance, which would have helped you a lot in this game, gaining that little bit of extra speed.
Before, remember?
Yeah, he did, and I think he should look into it a little bit more, especially in matchups like this, where Swords Dance Kartana would have put in so much work. But yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, but I like what Steve did. I liked the Specs Como, actually. I think it made more sense versus the prep when you look at Steve-O's team up and down, like I said. But I just think Steve needs to, yeah, like you said, get out of his own head. Start just playing, straightforward and making predictions when it's, again, the big thing for this week we want to address is the high-risk, low-reward scenarios some of these coaches are getting themselves into. And Steve made the same thing with the Starmie this week, where it cost him, although Steve's team was extremmer hyper-offense, and that is where I will agree with you, Aster. When you run hyper-offense, you have to have a Scarfer, because if your opponent has something faster than you, you're gonna lose with hyper offense slow. So Steve, you just gotta figure out that prep with the middle ground. If you're bringing your walls, you can bring the breakers, but if you're bringing HO, you have to bring Scarfers. But I think we can move on to number 14 for both of us. We both have Gio. Now, Gio did win this week, but it was a little sketchy of a win. If you watch Callum's side, he said that they both kind of agreed Callum definitely had an advantage as the timer stalled out. By the way, another timer stall game from Callum's end. That guy is just racking up the timers. But he did win because of the timer, so we will give him the same credit that we gave Callum. But the reason that Gio's not moving up is because you have to understand, we have 7, 3, and 4 teams starting from here to basically what is 8 or 9 for us. So we have to find a way to order them in a way that we feel is fair to this point. So I think Gio at this moment is 14 because he's definitely been off his game compared to previous seasons. He's had good prep. I like the Trick Room Zong with the Choice Band and Conkelder, but I literally saw the same thing I've told Gio. I don't know if he actually watches these videos, but I said a few weeks ago, he's switching in his offensive win cons on when he doesn't necessarily have to. And the big thing this week was the Conkelder, which destroyed Callum, taking a supersonic Sky Strike from a Tyranitar. Great prep on Callum's part. Gio kind of playing very risky with an offensive win con again, and it cost him. But I like seeing Gio with Remix. This could be a turning point for Gio. I very much look forward to seeing him, because if he can turn it on, we both know how good Gio can be.
Yeah, exactly, and he's not out of it yet, and I think that applies to any team that's in that zone that we talked about between number 14 and number 8 or 9. But Gio, no, again, I mean, just, it wasn't really his fault. You don't expect a Conkeldurr to die to a Tyranitar. I don't think that would ever happen, but again, he still played the endgame correctly to make sure that he had more HP remaining than Callum. And we've said it for the past few timer stalls. If that's the way you need to win, then go for it. I don't have a lot of notes on Gio again. Timer stall games, I don't really enjoy watching, but I did get a chance.
You know why, Aster?
Because you're a stall player?
I was just going to say because I enjoy Pokemon. You're an asshole for assuming.
I'm sorry, okay.
Triggered.
Anyway, that's pretty much it for Gio. Like I said, I don't have too many notes on him. We're going to move on. Well, actually, right above Gio is Callum. So, Callum, Supersonic Sky Strike, Tyranitar, really cool. It's unfortunate that it came down to the timer, because I do believe that Callum had a very good chance to win that game. We do need to see wins that aren't dependent on timers or against better players as well, because again, Gio is in the bottom, in the few bottom seeds that we have, and this time Callum lost to one of those teams, so it's hard to bring Callum up any higher. We did move him down 2 spots once again this week because he did lose, and now he's facing a not so great record, and again, with his 3 wins only being against teams that we have in the lower portion of the power rankings, it's hard to move him up. And I know that the game was in his favor if this game had continued beyond the stall, beyond the timer. I just said stall, beyond the timer, but we do have to move Callum down.
Yeah, we've dropped him a lot lately. Maybe it's fair, maybe we're just assholes. Who knows? Maybe both. But we have, like I said, ton of teams that are 3 and 4. So Callum is by far one of the coldest teams in the league right now, and that's important for power rankings in my opinion, because if a team is cold, you're more want to play them. And Callum has been on a bit of a losing streak. Like you said, his wins, I have them written down actually. They are against Steve, Tup, and Tom. And the game against Tom, a lot of people will argue Tom would have had it if, again, the timer had not been a thing. But the timer was a thing, so Callum did pick up that win, and we gave him the credit for that win. But I do like seeing Callum have fun, and I know he can bounce back. I liked that he did his own prep this week, and I think it greatly benefited him. I think that Callum knew his switch-ins for things, and it was just a few misplays here and there that really ended up costing him this game. One of them was the playing around the remix Crobat with your own Crobat. I don't see a situation in which Roost was not the play, and you ended up losing your Crobat basically and taking a lot of damage just to U-turn out into something to take on Crobat, when your best thing to take it on was probably your own Crobat and just Roost stalling it. But Callum's prep was very solid. I wish I could see like EV spreads and stuff like that, but you know, Callum doesn't have time for that. He doesn't have time for that. I can't fault him. I can go off of what I see in the game. Very cool Tyranitar set. That set was awesome, and I look forward to seeing stuff like that from him in the future. But yeah, I do want to give Callum a little bit of credit because he was doing well with this game. It just felt like he could not quite break through Gio's core with that Emboar. The Amoonguss and the Salamence were pivoting around it beautifully, and that's where I gave Gio a lot of credit this week. But Callum, you were very close. You're having fun, my dude. I like what you're doing. I just need to see you take down those top teams. But I would highly encourage you to keep prepping yourself. I think it is greatly benefiting you as a development as a player, and developing kind of that league format sense of like, because when you do your own prep, you can more better anticipate what your opponent's prep is going to look like. So Callum, I encourage that. Very, very good job this week. But I think we can roll right into... Do we both have Lars at 12? Because I believe we do.
For a few more spots, we have the same players.
Yeah, I think for like the top 10 through 16, we were right on the money. But yeah, we both have Lars at 12. And Lars just really can't seem to get any momentum going this season. He literally seems to be going 1-1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. And we saw it this week again with Duncan. He played it very, very interesting, and I think this has been one of the biggest prep missteps I've seen from Lars this season. I definitely would have ran shift gear this game. I don't know if he just did not want to bank on the fact that Weavile might be speed creeping again, and maybe wanted to run modest, because he did have that traumatic experience with that Dugtrio that wasn't speed creeping. But bringing Trick Room versus a team with an Alola whack, I mean, as much as you don't expect your opponent to prepare for Trick Room, you've brought Trick Room already, Lars. Duncan has that in his mind when he's prepping. So bringing it again and basically putting all your marbles on the fact that you can outslow Mons that are 20 base points slower than you, was a little bit much, and he definitely could have cleaned up this game. I actually think his best play was not setting up Trick Room in the end game, because I think his best play was just shadow balling, because the Metagross, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he could have calced it was banded from the damage it was doing, but if he'd have caught the Marowak with 2 Shadow Balls, he would have cleaned it up, gotten the Soul Heart boost, and then when Metagross comes back, it EQs and it doesn't, and he could set up the Trick Room then. He could take it, get the Trick Room up, and then kill with the Shadow Ball.
I wouldn't even Trick Room because Metagross was actually in range of a +1 Shadow Ball, and there's no reason to risk Bullet Punch if it isn't banded, so...
Yeah.
Lars this week I think was caught off guard by a lot of what Duncan brought, which is what happens when you underestimate a newer player to the format. He didn't evaluate the Venusaur as a huge threat to his team in his preparation, which was huge. He lost half of his team to that thing. Again, I don't think Lars played badly. He did mention that one little misplay he made against the Venusaur before it went down because Nihilego was integral to his endgame, maybe not as much as he made it out to be. But having just an extra sack can win you games. For example, the Keldeo, once it went down to 3%, Lars could have taken his time, seen that Endeavor was coming, switched into Nihilego, and gotten the revenge kill with Donphan, as Duncan had no switch-ins and Primarina would have still been alive. All in all, I think both played solidly, and I do think that we're still going to see Lars bounce back regardless, but I don't like that he's going +1, -1, +1, -1. It's kind of scary, and I don't like to see this from a team that we've seen a lot of great things from in the past. And even this generation, like if you guys aren't keeping up with Lars in other things that he's doing, he's performing very well. It's just in the GBA that he seems to kind of be slacking off a little bit, so hope to see that end. Did you have any more notes?
No, I just think I do want to give him a few shoutouts for plays he did. Like that double Ice Beam prediction with Primarina was amazing. That was a great play. I think that switching out on a potential growth Venusaur is always dangerous in a game where, like you said, it killed half of his team. So this is one thing I want to give Lars a credit for, because this is something I've praised the top players in the league for doing all year. Lars had his endgame plan. It just didn't work out this week. And he set it up so it could have potentially won him the game. And if he can continue to do that, he can definitely bounce back into a playoff spot for the rest of this season.
Yeah, it's the second time now that Magearna should clean up a game and then ends up being outsped by something that it shouldn't in his head. So I'd like to see that not happen anymore, and I think that Shift Gear would have been cool because I was expecting it in the end, and then when he went for Trick Room, I was kind of disappointed because I know that Alola Whack can definitely outslow Magearna, so that's that. We do have Lars in at number 12. Coming in at number 11, of course, we do have Duncan, so this is the second time that two teams that are facing each other end up side by side in our power rankings. Last week, I asked for a breakout performance from Duncan, and I got a breakout performance from Duncan. This was actually incredible. The Endeavor Keldeo was genius. I was kind of in the same boat as Lars when I kept seeing Duncan sub with the Keldeo, but when he went for the last one, it all made sense in my head. I didn't even have to see Endeavor, and I knew it was coming. What a cool set. And correct prep with the Marowak, bringing no speed, negative nature. Marowak with 0 IVs. It was a cool way to beat Trick Room Magearna. If it was Shift Gear, the game would have ended differently, but honestly, Duncan, bravo. You didn't make a single play that I can honestly say was terrible this game. So
yeah, I have to agree with a lot of what you said. I don't know if I or you actually would have looked at the speed stat of a Trick Room Magearna in prep, because I'm always like scared the hell out of Shift Gear. But good on Duncan for that. That was really, really integral prep, and like if he can do that in 30 minutes, imagine what he can do with an hour. But the Sun, very smart bring this week. Lars' team, like we've said, does not necessarily have walls. It has bulky things that can take hits, so something like Sun or Weather in general is pretty good against Lars in most hit cases. So very smart. Going for the growth in front of a Primarina that just did 50% to you was very, very risky. Keldeo, very, very cool set. I agree. I loved that prep on his part. But overall, his team was very solid, and I, again, can't see like the specific EV spreads and such, but what he brought worked and put in a lot of work, and it really impressed me with what he did this week. And if he can, again, we've said this all year, if a team that's 3 and 4 right now, or that's been in this kind of pool with all these other players, can just ride the momentum of a big win, of a confidence boosting win, and make it to that top end, then they can rise their power ranking spot very, very easily. But Duncan, he played well, he prepped well, and that's what he gets. He gets moved up 2 spots for each of us. But I think we can stroll right into Dan and the St. Louis Rampardos, who got a little bit of a jump this week. Slow clap, took down the #1 team, albeit a little bit of luck was on his side. And I do have a few choice words for Mono when we get to talk about him, but he did play well. He did not prep that great for Zygarde, obviously. That thing destroyed him a little bit. But the Banded Terrakion, very, very good bring on Dan's part. Mono does not have a switch in, but then again, no team really does. I liked the E-Belt on the Victini. Life Orb sucks. Scizor was interesting. I thought maybe Aerial Ace again, but since Mono's fire type is Salazzle, even though Salazzle is amazing, it's a little undoubtedly frail, so that was cool. The Gliscor set I actually thought was really cool, but I would have EV'd it to take 2 hits from a Banded Zygarde just in case, because with the emergence of Zydago's power, I'm starting to even see a lot of Banded Zygarde 50% running around. But Dan overall played very well around his team with what he had left, but he traded kill for kill with Mono, and at the end it did come down to a Water Shuriken play that Mono decided to make that I heavily disagree with. But Dan comes out on top, and we're going to move him up for it. He took down Mono, who we've been praising so far, so good job, Dan.
Yeah, I think Dan did a good job. I do think he lucked out at the end. Got really, really lucky with the Terrakion versus the Greninja, the 2 hits on the Water Shuriken. Again, Jar's going to elaborate a little bit more when we get to Mono, but Dan essentially started this game down 3-6 because he had 3 Mons that just dropped to 2,000 arrows. It was ridiculous. Like, his Gliscor died, his Toxapex died, and his Scizor died. All things that you expect to take hits decently well. Obviously, Toxapex takes it not so well because it is super effective, but Scizor, we know, is a bulky Mon. Gliscor is a bulky Mon. But Zygarde is just so strong right now, guys, and the ability to hit anything with 1,000 arrows is ridiculous. Mono using that very well. Dan, again, the Banded Terrakion, like Jar said, very good bring. Catching Mono off guard with the quick attack, I think, was a very important turn. And there are a few more important turns to this game, but most of them come from Mono, and once again, we'll get there when we get there. But A-Drive jumping up 2 spots in our power rankings, coming up at number 10. And moving on to number 9 for me, and I believe number 8 for you, we have Crimson Seabad and the Detroit Steel Wings. Now, Crimson, again, not a person that I have a lot of notes on. I think he played very well, especially in the end game. He knew what he had to do to try to win. He let things get toxic that he should have, specifically the Slowbro. You see your Slowbro in front of a Milotic, you know what's going to happen. The only way that Milotic is touching Slowbro is by toxicking it. And if you can see further into the game, you can see that that's going to be a big problem. If your Slowbro gets statused in any way, whether it be burn, whether it be paralysis, obviously toxic being the worst. And I think that Crimson is leaning a little bit too heavily on Serena this season. I've seen him bringing it a lot of games, and the problem is that you're going to run into a lot of things that Serena just doesn't have coverage for, namely this game, the Scolipede. And every time that the Scolipede could come in, it put on a ton of offensive pressure onto Crimson's side, because though it wasn't running Mega Horn, it had coverage for everything else, and it could hit everything super effectively. So that to me, like, I think relax on the Serena a little bit. I like the Tornado set with Sub, but again, it's another thing that got toxic, so a lot of this came down to how John played. I think he played a very strong match. Crimson kind of being hot and cold this season, it's very hard to tell where he's going to end up, but if he catches any wave of momentum, like you often like to say, I think he is going to have a very good season ahead of him. We have yet to see, but we will see in the coming week and the weeks after.
So I have Crimson at 8 because I think he is at this point the best 3 and 4 team. And I say this because, first of all, he'll probably 6-0 somebody next week, so I like my odds of putting him a little higher this week. His loss was to John, who has been cooking since his game versus Envy, and Crimson battled him very, very closely. And there was a little bit of unfortunate hacks. The Flamethrower burn on the Kyurem did cost Crimson one big hit he could have gotten, maybe killed the Goodra if John decided to sack that. I don't know. But Crimson didn't bring any, like, super memey things we're, like, used to seeing from him. But his prep was very solid. You saw a Life Orb Kyurem triggered. There was a Sash Volcarona, which I didn't too much understand because John, like, he has the Infernape and stuff. So I think if you just want to run, like, Evelt with Roost, I think that's a little better. I didn't really understand the Sash, what it was meant to take a hit from. I guess Ape and get off the Psychic. But I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of Sashed Mons in League format because people do like to get their hazards up. But he played it very, very well the whole game, and it was personally one of my favorite games to watch this week, and it came up to the very end where I believe it came down to the Ape and the Cobalion in a Scarf speed tie. I don't know if it was a speed tie by the EVs, but...
No, I'm pretty sure the Cobalion was actually adamant.
Yeah, okay, so he did lose that, but I thought he actually played John and gave himself the best chance to win in the endgame with the Cobalion, with knocking out the Slowbro, and putting himself in his best position to win. Unfortunately, John just had played that endgame a little bit better and had his win con still alive as well, and that's where you see Crimson fall. And so I like Crimson, and like I said, he's probably going to 6-0 somebody next week, so I like my chances of putting him higher this week.
I will just mention that I do agree with, what was I going to say? I do agree with Crimson and how he played the end game. I'll give it to him because he didn't know that Infernape was scarfed yet. So there was, it was a good indication that Infernape was scarfed, the fact that John was keeping it for the end. And I also like you said, that Crimson took John down from what should have been like a 5-1, 5-0 or a 4-0, and he brought it down to a 1-0. So he did save differential in that regard. So I'll also give him props on that. But I'll let you continue on with who we have, well, who I have at number 8 and who you have at number 9.
Yeah, and that would be Tom in the San Jose Sharpedos. So Tom, unfortunately, played Envy this week. Tom has a very hectic part of his schedule right now, if you pay attention. If you don't know, he plays Mono next week, he played Envy this week, and last week he played John. So all people we highly regard in this power ranking segment this week. So we did have to drop, I did want to drop him a little bit, but he had some very, very cool prepping points. He saw how Envy's been using his Alolan Muck, and he totally capitalized on it with the Azelf. And I've had this talk with Tom, and he kind of is on board with not making Azelf his Zmon next time, because, you know, Azelf doesn't really need the Z Crystal. It's either going to hit hard. The Z Crystals aren't about coverage. They're about how you can hit something super effectively very hard. That's why things like Thundy T are the best Z users, because Gigavolt Havoc coming off of Thunderbolt is impossible to switch into. And you saw Azelf knock out its counter without a Z Crystal this week, so I'm glad he's kind of realizing that. But Tom, yes, your walls are slow, but they don't have to be passive. A lot of your walls are actually some of the least passive walls, besides like P2, which is a little bit passive, but still has good Bolt Beam coverage to not be passive. But Tom, I think, let himself get worn down, and I think the biggest thing, he just under-prepped for Virizion a lot this week. Yeah, he was not ready for that thing to come, and it just absolutely destroyed the team he brought, especially since he used, like, his Celestia was like negative defense nature. He had a Vaporeon, which can't take it on, let that get to a KO. Unfortunately, he did not get a Scald Burn. That could have really helped him out, but he gets to play Mono next week, so we'll see if he can bounce back. But Tom's got a rough part of his schedule right now.
Yeah, I just want to go real quick over, Tom, I know you were probably trying to carry over the character from the April Fool's video into your match, but you were depressing to listen to, man. I'm sorry. The crit on Thundurus sucked a lot, but things happen. There's not much to say here. Tom still caught Envy off guard at least once during the match with the natural gift on Azelf, and I did drop Tom 2 spots this week because this is 2 losses in a row now. But don't get yourself down, dude. There's still quite a few matches left to play, and I believe in you. Envy is a very tough opponent, and any one of his opponents from week 2 to 6, and even last season will tell you that he's extremely hard to beat. So you still did a pretty good job. You've got another really strong opponent next week, or this coming Sunday in Mono. So just play as solidly as you can, and hopefully you can get past this hard period in your schedule and make it through and try to get a few wins toward the end of the season. So if you can pull one out against Mono, then kudos to you, dude. That's going to be amazing. Mono's kind of on a decline right now, so this would be the time to catch him off guard. Moving on to number 7, we have Gator, who I have actually moved up 2 spots. He's still in the same spot for you, I believe, because
yes,
he hasn't shifted. You brought him up earlier than I did. So Gator, to me, now has been making a bigger impact than he did in the last few weeks. He didn't overplay. We said it with Tup. He didn't overplay any of his turns, any of the turns that he didn't need to. That turn 1 play, getting rid of Nidoking, which he was terrified of, amazing. And then the way that he played, the Pyukumuku again is coming in so clutch. Getting up that light screen, relieving a little bit of pressure from the Chandelure. Him not switching out Heatran after losing the air balloon, and knowing that the Swallow could go for a close combat, and without rocks up, the game was looking a little bit less in his favor, but I mean, he still played it correctly. He predicted the the Staraptor to go for a U-turn, and it worked out for him. So I think big kudos to Gator. Of course, he did take down our number 16 team, but he's been on a hot streak. He's been playing very, very well, so I'll give him that. Good job, dude.
Yes, my belief in Gator has paid off so far. Do not let me down, Gator, but I'm keeping with him at number 6 because everyone I have in like this general area has been performing about how I expected. So I want to leave him at number 6 for now. But I feel like he prepped very, very well. Like he, again, very, very solid Mammoth Swine. He saw it didn't need an attack boosting item in order to destroy Tup's team. So just throw an AV on there, gain a little bulk, take a few more hits, especially from something you're terrified of, like a Nidoking. Luckily it came Black Sludge, but it still could have put in a lot of work. I actually thought Soldu Latios, though, amazing prep. Look at Tup's team. Nothing wants to take Lottie's dual stabs. So that was very, very smart, that item just being there. Light Screen Pyukumuku was brilliant this game, and it really kept momentum in Gator's favor with Baton Pass. It seems like a water Umbreon is what it seems like to me. Umbreon throws up wishes, Pyukumuku gets up screens, but even with what Gator had, what I thought was like a subpar matchup looking at it, because like I said, Tapu Koko could have just plowed through Gator's team this week in my opinion. He still pulled a 5-0 win, even though it was over the number 16 team. But Gator, he's playing straightforward, predicting when he needs to, and he's kind of finding that middle ground we always talk about of, you know, making those high, he seems to be making the high reward, low risk plays, and I really like that. And it seems Gator's kind of getting into his league format groove, and you're starting to see his player that we knew was in him, but maybe not as pronounced in league format, start to come back this week. He was very smart preserving his priority to the end, recognizing that the threat Raptor Bird posed and how slow his team is naturally. But Gator, I'm liking the way you're looking. Keep rolling, my dude. But I believe that we can move on to your number 6, my number 7, George. And George, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the player that I've been missing the first half of the season. He definitely started off in the hole versus Chimp, but he preserved what he needed to in order to sweep Chimp at the end. Scarf Kiss was a great bring versus Chimp. I would have tried to avoid getting its scarf knocked off, but I mean, you can't do everything, I suppose. But it literally could have swept looking at Chimp's team. The Miss Magia set was perfect, and he preserved it correctly, and I don't know what George wants to do with the Drapion. I guess just sacking it. I think that's like the third time it's happened. But he filled out his core nicely with the rest of his mons. And what I really liked about this game was how George actually seemed like he completed a very, very nice comeback. If you watch this game, he was in the hole what seemed like the entirety of this game. I felt like George was about to get demolished like 10 turns into the match, but he slowly started to bring it back. Like, when the Thunders went for the Darkinium Z, I'm like, alright, this game's over, George lost, but then he starts to like slowly pull it back, getting everything in range of Miss Magia's, keeping it out of range of a Dark Pulse from the Thunderous, and what do you know, it gets 3 kills at the end, Miss Savius comes through, George picks up a win versus who was my number 2 team last week.
Miss Savius, what an endgame. What an endgame, honestly. This has to be my favorite match of the GBA so far, George versus Chimp. The fact that George was able to see a way past his misplays, a way to victory, that's such a key trait of a good player, to never give up. And, like, George shows us those key traits of a good player in a lot of his matches that he plays. And he seems to have the number of that crew, you know, Gator, Chimp, MV. He's got a lot of their numbers, so I think that George just generally didn't have a great matchup, but it wasn't terrible. And losing his Mew the way that he did, the Mew that could have put in so much work, just very big misplays. He knew that the Thundurus was a Z move, and Gigavolt Havoc is not the only Z move that Thundurus can bring, and Dark Pulse is very common against a team. Like, you look at George's team, and it's very, very possible that a Darkinium Z Thundurus is going to come to that game. So I think that was a little bit hasty on his part to lose his Mew that way, but Missavius coming in clutch, winning the game, so I can't say anything bad about George. He pulled out a win against Chimp, so, and I believe that is Chimp's second loss this season, a true loss. A lot of what George came out with in the end, especially the win, was based on Chimp's plays, and we'll go over them when we get to him. But next up, in at my number 5, and your
Mine
number
as well.
5 as well, yes. We have Necro Steo. So Necro Steo hasn't moved. He did take on the other Steve in the team this week, and he pulled out a win. A lot of what happened was kind of on Steve's end, especially sacking off his Starmie the way that he did. But we did talk about Stevo's prep. I'm not moving him down at all, but the Manaphy, not sure about it. It was not able to handle a Como. It couldn't even 2-hit KO it with Hydro Vortex into Surf, which is really funny to me. He did play the Swallow right. I think he used it, and he did get a roll at the end, a little bit lucky, because I think he would have lost that game if that roll didn't go through. But I mean, rolls are rolls. That's never hacks. So that's pretty much it for Steve-O on my end. I mean, there's he played well. He beat the number 15 team though, so we're not putting him down. We're not bringing him up.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't, like, thrilled with the Manaphy set with the Water EMZ because I understand you're scared of a Scarf Circuitry. Who wouldn't be? It's a goddamn Scarf Circuitry. But I didn't see a situation in which he was getting both the Water EMZ Rain Dance up and getting up a Tail Glow versus Steve's team, because the way Steve's been playing, he has been bringing it quite hyper offense as of late. So I really didn't see his chance with that set. So I think just maybe 3 attacks Tail Glow lefties would have been better for this game. But I really like the Breloom. I actually love Scarf Breloom. I think it's the best set, and it's put in so much work this game. It caught the Starmie off guard, even though I do think he should have switched out. And one big thing for me, which kind of shows how Steve-O is definitely a good player, he brought Citrus on the Klefki, which I thought was brilliant, because this was a point when he recognized, alright, Steve's team is very offensive. I'm not going to get the full benefit of leftovers because I don't think this Klefki is going to be alive on that field for 5 turns. Let me throw a Citrus on it and I will get more recovery that way. And I thought that was very, very smart, anticipating it to be more offensive. Banded Scrafty, interesting. I don't think I've ever seen Banded Scrafty, but I don't understand it too much against a team as offensive as Steve's again, but we didn't really get to see it hit the field and do too much work. But Steve-O played the game he had to win. He got Swallow in a good amount and seemed to make the right play with it almost every single time. U-turning the first time, burning the Mimikyu's red card for basically nothing. He did get a little lucky, like we said, with the roll, but I think he played the endgame how he needed to in order to put himself in the best position to win, which is something we like to praise here. So Steve-O, good job. You're performing how I expect. You're not moving, but I think me and Aster can roll right in to number 4, who we both actually got a big jump last week, and he defended that jump this week, defending our honor. John and the New Orleans Pelipers jump in at number 4 with a nice win over a coach we both think is still a very big threat this season. So John looks like he's getting into form at the right time of the season, as it's getting to its middle and coming to eventually to the closing half. So, his prep, the AV Jolteon, was really smart, and it helped him wall a lot of Crimson's threats, actually. Scarf Ape, I mean, how many times, Aster, have you ran Scarf Ape when you've had it in League format, just counting March Madness? It almost came every game.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's so good.
So that set is just awesome, and I thought that it was really smart bringing the Volt Turn when his only Ape Switch in his Slowbro and just trapping Crimson. Trying to get a trap on Crimson in that Volt Turn core was really, really smart. Uxie and Goodra were fine. There was that little bit of hacks with Goodra I talked about earlier that I think cost Crimson a little bit, but it did work out for John, what am I saying? But because John is prepping and playing so well, I do want to keep him at number 4. I don't want to quite move him up yet because we still have our top 3, which we're still trying to find an order for. But the one thing I did not like, how do you not have Megahorn on a Scolipede versus a team with a Slowbro? And I was looking over, I'm like, alright, yeah, he needs Earthquake, he needs Rock Slide, he needs Poison Jab. Does he need Protect? Because look at Crimson's team. The only thing you'd need to protect on is Torn. So as long as you bring it in not on Torn right away, you're sweeping through Crimson's team because you hit everything super effectively at that point if Cobalt's worn down. So I think that he didn't really need Protect. I think John likes to play a little safe with the Scolipede sometimes, but this was a very, very good game to watch, and it did come down to the final turn of the Dual Scarfers meeting, but very, very good game, Aster. I'll let you take it.
I kind of have to disagree with you a little bit on the Protect issue, because Crimson was almost guaranteed to bring a Scarfer. He almost always does, and it could have been Crook. It could have been the Tornadus even, to outspeed a +1 Scolipede. It could have been the Cobalion as it was. So I don't completely disagree with having Protect. On top of that, Tangaberry was on the Slowbro. So keep that in mind. It would have lived with Megahorn, and it would have taken out the Scolipede with a Psychic. But like I said last week, John came through. He just came through again. He beat Crimson, who has, while being hot and cold as of late from week to week, has still been having a better season than any other before. And to come in with the confidence of the last 2 weeks and bring it into a tough matchup, that impressed me a lot from John. My favorite part of the match was, and I quote, "We are going to be able to take it out right..." Nope, burn? Yes, we do. This, like, listen guys, I implore you to watch this at 2 times speed. It is the funniest thing when this happens in the match. His dialogue is incredible. I almost fell off my chair. But I think that John played the endgame To the best of his ability, he did have to bring it down to a 1-0, unfortunately. But he still played super well. He still ended up with the win, and this leaves him at number 4 for us. So what more can we say? John, keep it up, dude. Moving on, my number 3, your number 2. Now, I know what people are going to say, so I just want to clarify this really quickly. It's somewhere in my notes, but I don't know where it is, but I'll jump over it when I get to it. I'm not moving Monotui down because of the comments section, because I read all your comments, and some of you are crazy, guys. Like, a lot of you wanted Chimp to be above Mono, and this week, for me, he is. But that's because Mono has now lost 2 games in a row. He made a very big misplay against Stan, which I personally think lost him the game. Not going Mill Tank when you know the Terrakion is locked into Quick Attack was severe. But the real reason I'm dropping Mono down to 3rd this week is not because of all of you guys who critiqued us on Chimp being lower than Mono. It's because Mono lost a match that I think that he should have won. Whereas in Chimp's case, he lost not only to the Season 6 champ, but also didn't make... I can't say he made any major misplays, but I'll get to that when I talk about Chimp. I'm sure Mono doesn't actually care about coming 3rd on my rankings. He'll find a way to bounce back even after 2 losses. And I'm starting to get a feeling that Dan may just be his kryptonite, because I believe he did lose to him last season. So that's pretty much it for Mono. I do have him down at number 3 this week. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks and how he performs from here on out, but 2 losses in a row does land him down here for me.
I still have him above Chimp because I just like fucking with you guys at this point. I mean, if you haven't figured that out from the draft analysis video and to stuff like that. But I do truly believe Mono's the 2nd best team in the league right now, because I have a very clear answer for why him and Chimp basically did the same thing this week. But Mono, you fucked up, man. This was your game to win easily. The Mill Tank play was the first step, but at the end, Pokemon, Aster has said this to me multiple times, so I'm going to articulate it now. Pokemon is a game of chance and odds and percentages. You have to find the highest percent chance you have to win the game. You said in your video, I have a 66% chance of getting the 3rd Water Shuriken. You have an 80% chance of hitting a Hydro Pump, which would have clean knocked it out. And there is no reason in that situation not to sack the Rachi on the last play, because you should have known his set. Stabs, Quick Attack, and Aerial Ace. There was no way he was not running coverage for Buzzwole when you have brought it defensive so many times. So you switch the Rachi in, and he kills you with a close combat. Now your Shuriken kills with 2. Or you click the Hydro Pump because it's the higher percent chance, you probably hit it because it's an 80% chance, and you pick up the win that way. You, in my opinion, made the least possible chance you could have to win that game. You made that play, and that's what cost you. So play the game of odds. Take your most likely route to win. You still probably, statistically, yes, should have won that game 66% of the time, but that's why you take the 80 or 100% chance of the time, because you don't want a 60% chance. If I told you, if you hit this Focus Blast, you could win the game, you probably wouldn't think, well, shit, I'm going to hit this Focus Blast, because no one hits Focus Blast, ever. But that's it for Mono this week. He is above Chimp because I'm going to actually get into it. I'm just going to steamroll. You've talked about Mono. I've talked about him. I'm going to go right into Chimp because Mono's going to catch a lot of shit for throwing this week, but Chimp, in this, my opinion, also made a gigantic misplay that cost him the game this week. And he comes in 3rd for me because I still think Mono is the better team at this point than Chimp. I like his team better. I like how he's played better. I like the people he's beat a little bit better. And it seems that Chimp could have had this game just as Mono could have. The prep was fine. He brought his offense, which has destroyed so many teams. The Darkinium Z was smart, and he brought good mons to support his offense. But Chimp was dominating this game early. I said it when we talked about George. I'll say it again. Chimp was smashing him. And it came in the late game when he had his Gligar in on the Garchomp. And if he had just roost stalled the Garchomp, then he would have won, because Mismagius was Specs. And there is absolutely nothing stopping you from sacking the Gligar and then going out into a full health Kyurem Black and putting it in Dark Pulse range. So Chimp choked right there by clicking U-turn, fearing like Yachi HPIs. Even in that scenario, I still think that trying to roost stall that Garchomp is still the best play. Because the second he clicked U-turn, I was like, oh my god, he's going to lose this game. He just let his Kyurem take a Dragon Claw from a Garchomp. He's not looking good at this point because everything was just in Mismagius range, and George cleaned up the game. So Mono and Chimp, we said it last week, they were both on thin ice, and they both slipped. So I think they can already tell who number 1 is, but you have to talk about your number 2 first.
Yeah, Chimp, I don't think played a terrible game. The one thing I will say is that I don't understand why Thunderous never came in on Togekiss once its Choice Scarf was gone. Especially on the last turn of Perish Song. I'm pretty sure if Azumarill stayed alive, Chimp had a very strong chance at winning this game. He had an extra Mon that just completely did work against the team that he was facing. So, I mean, ultimately it ended up coming down to a 30% chance to flinch. And I will say that if you see that as your only way to win at an earlier point in the match, try everything you can to make sure that doesn't get there. And that's what I feel like Chimp didn't do. So I will agree with you that U-turning was not the right play. Roostall 100% of the time. So, I mean, that's just how it goes. George is a phenomenal player, and this week we got to see it against, again, one of that crew. So, coming in at number 1, and I get to talk about him first, yay, because of the order we do this in, but we have Envy in at number 1. Envy, you can finally go home, my friend. You have gotten an A+. You are in at number 1. Not necessarily for your team itself, but how you've been using it. Envy is now number 1 because since week 1, he has not slipped up once. And keep in mind that his only loss this season is to a team that we have both had on a steady rise in power rankings because they are on fire, the Florida Gators. Hey, is that Scarf Lando, by the way? Jar? Was that Scarf Lando? Shocker!
It wasn't.
But seriously, MV played this well. He got a few crits, but as MV stated, most of them didn't end up mattering in the end. I really like how he wasn't scared to let his Landorus especially take damage once recognizing that there was no potential Scarfer on Tom's team. And here's my plug for the week. MV, how you liking that Verzion, buddy? Nice clean sweep at the end. That's all I have to say on MV. He's just been playing solidly all season, as we're used to seeing him do.
Let me tell you a story, Aster, about a young boy named D plus Envy. D plus Envy was ejected from his home because some asshole analysis decided that Envy was trash, apparently, and got kicked out by his parents. But he turned his season around, and he acquired a Cresselia, and now his team is obviously an A+ because he has Cresselia, and he finally gets to the number 1 spot, and he can finally go home to his family. And Envy has been on fire.
I love that
season.
story, man.
6-1. He only losses to Gator, and he will hold the top spot. He did get caught by the natural gift Azelf, but I don't have a ton to critique Envy on. Again, prepped and played exactly how we expected him to. He used Crest so well, and like I said, teams like Envy's, teams like Steve specifically, I didn't think the synergy was as good. Teams like Tom's, they need, when the offense is so prevalent and you have a bunch of bulky things, it's nice to just have the one Mon that can soak any hit. And I think Crest fits beautifully on Envy's team because he didn't have like a super powerful, bulky psychic type. And Cresselia fits the bill for Envy's team so perfectly because he does hurt it with the rain a little bit, but he doesn't have to bring rain. He hasn't brought rain that many times, by the way. Pelipper, still around 2-pick. You only have to bring it once. Still around 2-pick. But yeah, the addition of Crest to his team really improves it for me. Not to like a point where I would give it like anything above like a C still, because Envy, your team's trash. But he still is playing very, very well, and I can't deny Envy the number 1 spot. He's finally done it. Envy is the top of the GBA. At this point, he could still slip. He's got plenty of games left, but Envy, you've done it. My friend, you can go home now.
He's back where a lot of people think he should be, but that's going to be it for us this week, guys. I hope you did enjoy. Again, this might be up a little bit late just because of certain events, but again, I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to leave a like down below. Check out all of the coaches in the description, and that is it for us.
Bye.
Bye.